versus Edward Gregory.
Dude, let me tell you, this is probably one of the most exciting matches on the card.
Okay.
These two guys are extremely good. Caleb is a blue belt, but Edward is a purple belt. Caleb is a former wrestler, and he is just.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Put your hands together for Edward Gregory.
And Edward Gregory is extremely good as well. They both put on amazing performances on the last event. And this match has been talked about left and right, saying, man, this is going to be a banger.
Really? So social media is kind of lit up about this?
Yeah. And even Edwards had said, man, this is going to be a really fun match. I cannot wait.
That's awesome.
And his opponent, Caleb Freeman.
You know, I hate that there's going to be a loser because I'd love to see both of these guys in the absolute tournament later, you know. But Caleb is a stud. I can promise you there's going to be some
good luck, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, the purple division, no,
probably, right?
181 to 190
the table on this one.
Fighting at a Force MMA Russellville.
That's why you put us back here.
Everybody back.
His opponent from Gravitas MMA, Searcy, Arkansas, Caleb Freeman.
Oh, some crowds out for Caleb Freeman, aren't they?
Yeah.
Loud. Sits guard.
Yes.
That might be a wise choice.
Right. He knew that he didn't want to get wrestled down, but my guess, Caleb's going to keep this body lock and try to pass. Edward's doing good, but I would have kept that underhook and probably pried those hands loose to try to come to break his hands loose to get his guard back, but he pulled on it. Okay. Oh, he's using a rubber guard. Man, I'm not super averse in the rubber guard system, but I don't know.
Are you flexible enough to pull it off? That's the question, Jamie.
Man, I've played rubber guard before. So.
Have you? Okay, okay.
I firmly believe that jiu-jitsu doesn't require flexibility. It simply requires you to understand what angle your hips need to be at.
The 10th Planet system does. That system.
I would say maybe, but I'm going to say for sure if the hip angle is correct, it helps so much.
Now, I have heard, and this is just rumor, I've heard, it might or might not be true, that in the 10th Planet system, Eddie won't promote you unless you can perform rubber guard. Like, you have to have that kind of flexibility to be able to.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's one of the cool things about the different affiliations that we see, right, is there's always, like, some attribute or something that they just really excel at. Like, for my affiliation, Roy Dean, there's a couple of very specific techniques that are just kind of hallmarked for us.
Yeah.
And the style, too. And with 10th Planet, like, there's a couple of attributes I've noticed from these guys specifically. Not that Edwards is 10th Planet. He's Forza MMA, so a little bit different. But I wouldn't totally surprise me. This is another one of those things we need to
Have y'all not heard that? Have that y'all
yeah.
You have heard that, okay.
I've heard that, and I've also heard you have to be, like, before you can teach and stuff like that, like, you have to know all the warm-ups by heart. You have to be able to teach all the warm-ups that Eddie has in place, and there's like a whole it's like a whole flow system that they do.
It kind of makes sense, right? Because, again, going back to what I know, Roy Dean, we have a very structured curriculum from white to blue, and then from going to purple onward, it's structured, but you write it in. So you have to know X amount of mount escapes, X amount of side mount, X amount of sweeps, stuff like that. So from purple onward, you really get to kind of showcase your own game. But so, I mean, I would imagine that makes sense, right? Eddie Bravo's the guy that thought it all up, so obviously there's some method to that.
Yeah, for sure. There's a ton of really good, flow warm-ups that he's got, man. I mean, I don't. And two, like even with rubber guard, you don't have to be super flexible. You can if you know how to turn your
hips,
shrimp
and
your hips
angle,
out.
and
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I mean, literally, some people might not be able to do it, but just generally speaking, it just tends to be like a lot like bigger people that have like tons of muscle mass or just tons of weight.
Speaking of muscle mass, Mr. Freeman here is being heavy on top.
Yeah, he is.
And Gregor's having a really hard time doing anything from the bottom as far as sweeps and getting out. Freeman really likes his body lock. I can tell you that. He's body locking in full guard, half guard, quarter guard. He likes that control on top.
Yeah, for sure. And this, I think the production team didn't hit the start button on time. But this time is not correct, so those guys.
The time shown on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're going to hit the horn before.
It's all right. Everybody gets a mulligan.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a mulligan.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, finally passes here. But can he keep the pass? No, Gregor uses good job pushing it back in.
To quote one of my instructors, if you teach a wrestler how to do jiu-jitsu and work off their back, it's like giving a gorilla wings.
That's good. I get it. That's funny. Is that Roy Dean?
Michael Hooker.
Michael. All right. How's Mr. Hooker doing?
He is fantastic. He's actually in week 7 of the Memphis Police Academy.
Oh, is that right?
So, yep.
Okay.
Answered the call to make the community safer.
Awesome.
Couldn't be more proud.
Good for him. I think that's awesome.
So that's, I think that's what, Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt number 3. We got John Border, Brian Hall, and now Michael going through. Very cool.
Let's see.
Is there someone else? Am I missing someone?
No, Jonathan McHugh, I think, is a brown. No, is Jonathan McHugh a black belt?
Yeah, he's a black belt.
Yeah, Jonathan McHugh also.
Very
Memphis
cool.
Police officer.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
No.
I would love to see those guys.
And yes, I remember the Memphis Police Academy. So myself and a guy named Jason Redding, who was on the TAC unit, put together the first ground tactics course for the Memphis Police Department.
Very cool.
For the training academy. So we went out there and, I'm a huge proponent of, obviously, jiu-jitsu and ground defensive tactics for police officers. I think it would really help a ton with all the stuff that's happened. And,
They get a little bit in the academy.
Yes.
Not
a
in my
lot.
opinion,
Not
enough.
a lot, yeah.
But we've got the recruit class training at our academy some, which is
Nice.
awesome. So
That's great.
Hoping to get more of those guys in.
Well, I hope they embrace it. But here's the funny thing. All right, not to talk over this match, but Jocko Willink said something really interesting one time on one of his podcasts about it. He had a great idea, and I think it's about perfect. He's like, we got to rethink. When we talk about rethinking policing, it's rethinking their work schedule. In other words, when do they get to follow up on their shooting or their defensive tactics or anything they need to know being a police officer in service? 1 week a year, right? That's what they get. What should happen instead, let's say they work a 5-day work week, for example, okay? Instead of spending 5 days on the beat, they spend 4 days on the beat, 1 day in continuing education training. They're doing jiu-jitsu for 2 or 3 hours on that day. They're getting to go to the range and shoot the variety of weapons or whatever, work on their tactics, work on their entry skills, work on their de-escalation skills, and like verbal skills, what's in the latest laws and what's going on. That's what should happen. And I agree, because you have to put those officers, you have to make them train and do these things, because a lot of them are going to do it on their own. That's not saying they're, they don't care. It's just that people have lives.
Yeah.
They have families and things like that going on. They just don't have the time. They don't make the time for it. So anyway, I thought that was just brilliant, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I like
for
the
sure.
idea. I think part of the issue is that some departments are obviously.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Purple Division 7-minute regulation round goes to the judges. Judges score.
I love that idea.
Blue, red, red, red division. Here it is, Caleb Freeman.
Caleb Freeman. So both these guys competed on the last
Yeah.
summit.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.